name is Tiffany Jordan, and I'm the reading teacher at Terry Elementary. Today, I would like to share with you one of the best ways to help students improve their reading. It is simply by writing. Now, writing looks different depending on the grade levels. I want to particularly share with you some ways that you can help students who are reading on grade levels 1, 2, and 3, but it may look different when you're working with your students. First of all, one of the most important things we have to remember when you're doing reading, you always want to focus on comprehension. That is the ultimate goal every time we read, whether it's informational text or fiction text. And that point we have to drive home with students. When students are reading, it is very important to have them tell you about what they've read at the end of the story. Now, if you're finding that sometimes you're getting to the end of the story and students aren't able to tell you or remember enough about the story, you can always, as you're reading, stop after every couple of pages and then ask them to share with you what they've read. That way, you're not expecting them to hold on to so much information at the end, and usually they are able to do it at the end of every couple of pages, and then by the time you've made it to the end of the book, they're able to recall what they've already told you. Over time, you should see a shift if you are continuing to do this, and it should get better. Hopefully, by the end of your tutoring sessions, you would want them to be able to share with you at the end of the story what they've read. Now let's talk about writing. What kinds of things can you do with students when it comes to writing? You can do tons of things. The summaries that we just talked about that students give you at the ends of the book when they're reading, that is one of the best ways to write. They share with you what they've learned from the story, and then you simply have them write. Another way to include writing is to use the graphic organizers that the Our Kids Read program includes in your packets. That is another great way to use writing. Usually it's pretty easy for kids who are in 3rd grade and sometimes 2nd grade to use those. 1st graders can do it, but they will often need a lot of support. Another way to include writing is to simply ask students questions about the story. Focus on the lesson if there's a lesson in the story. If it's informational text, you can always ask them to share with you what they've learned about the story. A final way is to have students write about the setting. And even the characters, describe the characters. And oftentimes with younger students that may not be able to describe, they love to draw. And you can draw the characters and you can label some things about the characters. So I'm going to show you now how that will look when you're working with 1st graders. So let's say you've just finished reading the book Henny Penny. Henny Penny is just like Chicken Little. It's the story of a hen who believes the sky is falling when an acorn hits her on the head. So she goes to tell the king. So you've read the story with the kids, and you know that Henny Penny goes to find all her friends, cocky, locky, ducky, lucky, turkey, lurkey, so they can go tell the king. But along the way, they meet Foxy Loxy, who is a fox, and foxes like birds, of course. And so Foxy Loxy is going to try to eat Henny Penny and all of her friends, and he ends up being successful. This is a great book for inferences also. After you've read the book, you talk about the story, and then you just ask your 1st grade student, why did Henny Penny think the sky was falling? And then they will say to you, an acorn hit her on the head. You're absolutely right. Let's write that. And so I love to use journals with students because it is a good way to have a starting point and an ending point, and you can just have a collection of all their writing. And so it's not only helpful for us to see that, but for them to see where they started and how much writing they've done by the end of their series of lessons. So we would start out by saying they've said to you, an acorn fell on Henny Penny. Okay? And I would have them repeat that a few times. An acorn fell on Henny Penny. And then we're going to write it. The first word is an. And I would say to them, can you write that word an? And if they say yes, I would have them write it. If they say no, then we would say it slowly. An. I would have them repeat after me. What sounds do you hear in the word an? And let's say they hear N. Great, there is an N. So what I would do is I would write the letter A, and then I would share the pen with them and let them write the word an. So then we'd read it, an acorn. Acorn is a word that has 2 syllables, so we can clap that to help the students hear more of the sounds in the word. Acorn. And then they would do it with me, acorn. What sounds do you hear in the word acorn? If they say A, I would let them write A. And then corn, do you hear anything else in corn? And they may say K. If they say K, great, because they know that K is the sound for K, but it's also the sound for C. And at that point, I would say, you're right, it does sound like K, but it's a C. and then I would just keep writing. And if they don't hear anything else, I would just write the rest of the word, and we would continue on that way. By the time we get to the end of the sentence, if it has taken 10 minutes, then I would stop there. An acorn fell on her head and leave it there. For kids who are young and struggling, to get a sentence like that is awesome. And it may be that you stop there, have them read the sentence. That'll be it for the writing session. And then the next week when you come back, when you start meeting with them, you can review Henny Penny. You don't have to read it. Ask them what they remember, and if they say something else, let's write that. You can add one more sentence to the story, and then you can be done with that. You can move on with your other exercises for the week. But that way, it gives them an opportunity to build a story, but just not all in one session. So you're giving them little bits of chunks over time, and that helps them feel successful. You can do the same thing when you are doing your summaries with them. You may have to, some students may be able to summarize, but when it comes to writing, you may have to take it a sentence at a time to help them get that down. One other thing that you can do with kids who are struggling is if they like to draw, they can draw pictures. And a book that comes to my mind is The Little Red Hen. Have them draw the character of the Little Red Hen, and you can label some of the things, like if they could draw the hen and then draw an apron, and that would be a good way to fit in some vocabulary. Talk about what an apron is, label it. That will help them with writing. They can draw some of the items in the story, the bread, the animals. That's another way to help lower students who are struggling. Another thing that I like to do with students is to write letters to the characters. They love to be able to tell the characters, hey, I like what you did. I agree. You shouldn't have let them eat the bread. I'm thinking about the little red hen. So those are just some things that you can do with students who are learning to read and may not have established those writing skills that we would expect them to have even in 3rd grade. But the important thing is to help them feel successful wherever they are. Thank you.